Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 306 of the podcast. Unless you're joining me live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. If you want to catch the show live, subscribe on one or all of those platforms. Turn on your notifications, and they'll do the work of letting you know when the show is going live, like right now. Today is Sunday, March 12th. The week before St. Patrick's Day, where people of Irish heritage like myself and everyone else get shit-faced for no apparent reason. Some guy and something with snakes a long time ago. Nobody really knows. But it all happened. So we wear green, and we drink green beer, and we drink whiskey, and we have a good time. And I hope everyone does it safely. And that's all I have to say about that. A little bit late on this Sunday evening. It's about 11 p.m. I'm coming to you all pretty tired. I'll be honest with you. It's been a long day. We lost an hour of sleep, daylight savings time. So don't forget to change the batteries in your smoke detectors, folks. This is your yearly reminder. Daylight savings time. A good time to change those out. Keep your family safe. And I like to remind people to do that. My brother-in-law has been in town from Japan for the past few weeks. Those of you who caught the last few episodes know that my father-in-law had hip replacement about 2 weeks ago. So my brother-in-law has been in town to help out. And he was in search for some American whiskey that he can't get his hands on while he's in Japan. So I hunted it down for him because, as you know, that's what I do. He was looking for a Wyoming bourbon. So I managed to snag a bottle of it. Never had it myself. Brought it to the in-laws' place today for like a late lunch, early dinner. We started pouring the whiskey because he didn't have room in his suitcase to take it back to Japan with him. So we started enjoying it, and we enjoyed quite a bit of it. And right when I was just about done drinking for the day, he broke out some whiskey that he brought from Japan, which happened to be a Nika coffee grain whiskey. Now, the coffee grain, a lot of people mistake for coffee flavored whiskey, but it's actually coffee, Coffey, and it has nothing to do with the coffee that you and I drink in the morning with our breakfast. It's actually the name of the type of still that's used to make this whiskey. So the Nika coffee grain is actually 95% corn whiskey. It's basically a bourbon, but you can't call it a bourbon because it's not made in the United States. Delicious. Very hard to come by here in the States. So I was grateful that he shared it with me. I have a picture of the bottle. I'll post that up on my Instagram story at some point. So put back quite a few, to say the least, this evening or late this afternoon. And then I took a long break, came back home. My wife drove. Jeez. All right. My wife drove. Maybe I didn't recover quite as much as I thought I had. You know, I may have just reprimed the engine here with little Buffalo Trace. Got home and then had to pack for my trip to New York, because on Wednesday I am flying to New York with my daughter, just the two of us. The wife's staying behind to run the business. But because it's spring break here in Florida, the flights were absurd to fly out of Tampa to go to New York. So Mark Fellows asks, are you intoxicated? Mark, I don't know what show you thought you were tuning into, but this happens to be MMA on the Rocks. And I rarely do this show sober. So I hope that answers your question. So the flights from Tampa to New York were absurd. So I found out the flights from Orlando to New York were much more reasonable, in the ballpark of like $700 cheaper. So I thought, okay, let's get a hotel for a couple of nights in Orlando. The wife can drop us off at the airport, and then she can drive back for 5 days and then come pick us up in Orlando on Sunday. Thinking because we have our Disney annual passes that we'll just go to Disney for a couple of days. Wrong, because our annual passes were blocked out this week. I guess because it's spring break, so it's too popular. So that was a no-go. So we wound up booking like a little motel that has a little water park in it, which will be fun for our little 5-year-old princess. So we're going to do that for a couple of days, fly out of Orlando to New York, visit the family. I'm very excited to meet my niece, Julia, who is just over 3 months old. Haven't met her yet. So that's going to be awesome. I wish I could have been up there when she was born, but wasn't doable. So I get to meet my 3-month-old niece, and that's very exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be up there for UFC 286. So I'll be watching that at my sister's house. We'll get into all that a little later. So leaving tomorrow morning-ish for Orlando, doing a couple of days there at a little water park, hotel, motel, whatever it is. And it's going to be a good time. Spring break. Not like the spring break of old. These spring breaks are now revolved around entertaining the kids and meeting the babies. Phil McClendon tuning in from Memphis says, great show. Well, cheers to you, Phil. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, but thanks for tuning in. All right. I noticed an influx of notifications on YouTube because last week I started posting more little short videos, like the 60-second things that kind of pop up in your feed. And I shared some of my opinions from the show last week about refereeing and stand-ups and a couple other things. And I saw an influx of negative comments, which, when you put yourself on the internet, you have to be expecting that sort of thing, because there's just negative people on the internet. So normally it's just, the usual group. I have a couple of people who like to break my balls on here, and that's fine. I'm totally open to it. I actually enjoy it. I'm not someone who's going to get all bent out of shape over a few negative comments, but with the YouTube shorts, I noticed that my opinions made a lot of people upset, and they let me know about it. And I engaged in a little back and forth, and I found it fun. Like, if you ever disagree with something I say, that's fine. I'm willing to put my opinions out on the internet, fully aware that people are going to disagree with them. I'm just happy you're listening to them. So if you disagree with something I say, let me know. Let's have a little back and forth. That's why we're here. This is all in good fun. Yes, Mark says any publicity is good publicity. So if you're tuning into the show, or if you're watching the shorts, or if you're reading my tweets or looking at my Instagrams or anything I'm putting out there, I appreciate it. Even if you hate me, I appreciate you. So thank you to everybody who commented on the little short clips. Those clips got a lot more views than the actual episode, and a lot of things people were upset about were actually cleared up in the full length episode that they're probably never going to listen to. So that's that. I'm just going to let the universe balance that one out, and we'll leave it at that. So one of the things I got into last week, and I normally steer clear of giving you guys predictions. I don't like to give predictions because people do listen to the show. It may not be a lot of people, but people listen. And I don't want anybody putting their hard-earned money on the line based on something that I say. You know, I can be very persuasive at times, I've been told. And I don't want to sway you one way or the other and cause you to make some bets that you'll regret. So I kind of steer away from giving my opinion on how fights are going to turn out. But what I told you guys last week is I don't see Petr Yan having a chance in hell of winning this fight. I said that with a lot of conviction, which is something that I don't normally do with you guys, right? But that's because I didn't see a chance in hell that he won that fight. I mean, Petr Yan, I think he's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. But I think he's been one of the more overhyped fighters in recent memory. And I'll stand by that statement. In the last 4 years, he's only had one win over an active fighter, and that was a decision win over Corey Sandhagen. Great fight. You know, he showed a lot of gusto in that fight, but I just don't think he's the phenom that people kind of labeled him to be. And I hate to knock people down after a few losses. And granted, there was definitely controversy. I mean, the loss over Aljamain Sterling, that was an unfortunate circumstance for everybody, including Aljamain Sterling, who got a belt put around his waist. The fight with Sean O'Malley, I thought Petr Yan won that fight, but I didn't really care that much. If Petr Yan was the fighter that people built him up to be, he should have left it beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was the better fighter than Sean O'Malley. And he didn't do that. He couldn't get him out of there. He couldn't finish him. So he lost a bullshit decision there. I'll give you that. But here's a guy who earned his way to a title shot by knocking out a 40-year-old Uriah Faber. So I was just never on board with the hype train. And then I thought it was just a horrendous matchup for him. Like, Merab is so tenacious. He fights smart. He comes in there with a good game plan. He broke the record for most takedown attempts in a fight. What was it? 45, 40 something? Hey, granted, he only hit like 7 or 8 of them, but the threat of the takedown was what allowed him to bust up the face of Petr Yan. I mean, his right eye was all but swollen shut by the end of this fight. And I think about halfway through the 4th round, he probably couldn't see out of that eye. Merab busted him up. Merab is a fucking animal. All right. Speaking of animals, Jeff the Animal Wilson obviously could not join us this evening. He had dinner plans. I think he's at a wine and cheese party or something like that with Arsenio Hall. Why didn't anybody tell me how good the cheese was? All right, so here's the problem that comes up with Merab winning this fight. Obviously, he's the number 1 contender. But his buddy Aljamain Sterling is the champ. I think they have a plan in place for what's going to happen. Aljamain's going to do his next fight. against whomever he's booked to fight. It escapes me right now. And then he's going to move up to 145 pounds. He's talked for years about how the cut to 135 is too tough for him. I think the plan is for him to vacate the belt and move up so that Merab can fight for that belt. I don't know who he'll be fighting. Probably the winner of Corey Sandhagen and Chito Vera will probably fight Merab for that vacant belt. Oh yeah, that's right. So Aljamain Sterling's supposed to fight Henry Cejudo. Who knows what happens there either. Maybe Cejudo wins, and then Cejudo versus Merab would be an awesome fight. I mean, you have a wrestling machine in Merab who doesn't necessarily have wrestling credentials, but mixes things up well in the cage, and has such tenacity and does not get tired that his wrestling is effective against an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling in Henry Cejudo. That would be a fun fight too. And I think win or lose, Aljamain Sterling will likely move up to 145 pounds. Off of a win, he's more likely to get a title shot at 145. I think Aljamain Sterling versus Volkanovski would be a fun fight. Aljo is a big 135er. And I think he may actually be a little bit bigger than Volkanovski, which, based on the fight with Islam Makhachev, we've seen is not an issue for Volkanovski. So I think it's a fun stylistic matchup. I think it's a fun fight. I would like to see it. There's a lot of interesting things that are going to happen in the bantamweight division in the next few months. I'm excited for the Sandhagen and Chito Vera fight. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, Merab just beat up on Petr Yan here. Yan was not in a single second of this fight. He was just not in it the entire time. Couldn't get any offense going. He did hit one takedown. I think it was in like the third round or so. But other than that, I mean, he did a good job defending takedowns. Obviously, he defended like 38 takedowns. But if you're defending takedowns the entire fight, obviously you're not producing any offense. And let's not forget, he was getting beat up on the feet too. That eye was swollen shut at the end of the fight. So credit to Merab. He did exactly what I kind of thought he was going to do. And like I said, I don't like to give you guys predictions. I don't like to pick the winners. But when I looked at this fight on paper, I just saw it going down exactly how it went down. I saw Merab just smothering Petr Yan for 25 minutes. And I couldn't fathom it going any other way. And that's exactly how it went. So there you have it. I'm not saying I'm some kind of like mystic fight predictor or anything, but I've been around this sport a long time, and I very rarely give you guys predictions, but when I do feel so strongly about something, I'll mention it. So there you have it. And again, I'm not saying do not ever, or I am saying do not ever bet your money based on anything I say. Please do not. I've gambled on MMA before. I'm not good at it. And I'll just leave it at that. The rest of this card, I thought it was a fun little card. I was out last night, so I missed it live. The wife and I had a little date night, got a babysitter. We went to a winery nearby called Aspirations Winery. Did a wine tasting there. Awesome. Love it. It's like 5 minutes from our house. We'll be visiting there again, probably in the near future. Just went and did like a little tasting, wound up leaving with like 6 bottles of wine. But it was awesome. They really do a nice job. Everything's like organic. They don't use like sulfites or anything. Their whole thing is their wine won't give you hangovers, which I don't have a problem with anyway, but I know some people do. So if you have a problem with hangovers, you want to avoid wine with sulfites and like artificial ingredients like sweeteners and stuff like that. Try to stick to more organic stuff, sulfite free, et cetera, et cetera. Um, different buzzwords you want to look out for. So the rest of this card, Alexander Volkov getting a TKO over Alexander Romanov. I said last week there's only room for one Alexander, so I guess it's Volkov. Romanov, I think, attempted like 5 takedowns in the 2 minutes that this fight lasted. He got none of them. And he got knocked out by Volkov. Romanov looked desperate. He looked sloppy. Didn't look like a co-main event fighter in there, to be honest. So he got finished quickly by Volkov, who is, still a high-level heavyweight, in my opinion. So there you have it. Nikita Krylov getting the triangle choke over Ryan Spann. So this fight was interesting. Obviously, everybody knows they were supposed to fight 2 weeks ago. Krylov came down with some diarrhea or, whatever he had, some kind of intestinal thing, food poisoning, who knows. Couldn't make it to the fight. So they put it off. They did it at a catch weight of 215 pounds because they just did the weight cut 2 weeks ago. So they'll give him a little bit of a break from that. 215. These guys went in looking to kill each other, basically. There was a lot of animosity going into this fight. Krylov was just a step ahead the whole time with the grappling exchanges, and then wound up on bottom, but wound up getting Spann one arm in, one arm out, locked up a triangle, got a quick tap from him. So that triangle must have been tight. You notice that when he hit the triangle, he was on a little bit of an angle, which makes the triangle so much tighter. So as soon as he had it locked in, and when he cut that angle, it's immediately cutting off the blood flow to Ryan Spann's brain. He felt it right away. He recognized it, and he did the smart thing and tapped, which some of the other people on this card did not do, and they chose to go to sleep. We'll get into that a little bit later. Jonathan Martinez and Said Nurmagomedov. What a fight this was. Look, we've seen, especially in the past week with Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso, spinning attacks can look kind of cool, but they're just not effective. If you land one, yeah, it'll be on your highlight reel forever. I mean, Edson Barbosa and Terry Edom, that highlight reel lives rent-free in everybody's brain for eternity. However, those moments are based on perfect timing, right place, right time, and just poor reaction time. The ways to deal with spinning attacks are either to step back from them or to move forward and smother them, like putting out a fire, throwing a blanket on a fire. You got to smother those spinning attacks. We saw last week, Alexa Grasso drilled over and over the smothering technique. You smother on the spinning back kick and you're able to take the back. I teach my fighters at the Muay Thai gym, if somebody throws spinning attacks, to just step forward and grab a clinch. And I think that's good enough. So the point I'm getting at is Said Nurmagomedov spent a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to throw these spinning attacks, and he even landed a few of them. He landed a few nice spinning back fists, and it looked cool. But look, at the end of the day, he lost the fight to a guy who was just a little too tough, a little too gritty, a little too good in the clinch, was able to pin him up against the cage. If he got taken down, he's working off of his back. Jonathan Martinez did a great job in this fight. And so someone I listen to a lot is Chael Sonnen, and he says, that a lot of times the obstacle fighters run into is the fight is harder than they thought it was going to be. And that's usually the fights that they lose. If they go in thinking they're just going to completely run through a guy, I heard Saeed Nurmagomedov leading up to this fight saying, like, nobody wants to fight him and he wants a top level opponent, and just basically dismissing his fight with Jonathan Martinez, who is an extremely tough dude and had an incredible corner, by the way, as well. I have to give a shout out to the corner of Jonathan Martinez, who's giving him great advice throughout the entire thing. Like when he had Nurmagomedov against the cage at one point, and Nurmagomedov was trying to tie his leg up. They just told him to step his leg back. Very simple adjustment, but he heard it, he listened, and he executed. And he was able to keep that dominant position, holding him up against the cage. So it was good coaching with a very coachable fighter, which is something that is very rare in this sport, believe it or not. We don't often see coaches who give good advice, and we don't often see fighters who listen to that good advice. So that combination is what won this fight for Jonathan Martinez, along with, his fighting spirit and his heart and his desire to win, is what got it for him. Humbling experience for Nurmagomedov. His first loss, I believe. It was on a big platform. I'm sure he's going to be put through the ringer when he gets back to practice with the rest of the Dagestani crew. I'm sure Khabib is not going to be happy with his performance. Hopefully we see him come back, with better game plans and just not throwing the spinning shit, because especially at a high level, like, yeah, there's a chance you'll hit it and you'll have a highlight reel for the rest of your life. But I just don't understand putting so much effort into something that's so low percentage. And that's all I have to say about that. Mario Bautista making quick work of Guido Cannetti. Pretty nice back and forth between these two with the grappling exchanges early on. And then Bautista kind of just decided to end the fight and got on the back of Guido Cannetti, hit that rear naked choke. Vitor Petrino and Anton Turkalj. This was a fun fight. Turkalj showing he's got a hell of a chin. He took some clean shots from Vitor Petrino and just took a licking and kept on kicking. So credit to him. I know he's gone up to heavyweight on short notice and came out of that on the wrong end and came up short here, but he showed that he's tough as hell, because I think Petrino kind of thought he was going to run through him, and then he realized he couldn't, and then had a really hard time, especially in that second round. But then kind of turned it back on again. I think he was getting frustrated too, that he just could not put Turkalj away. But ends up with the unanimous decision in a very close, very exciting fight. Karl Williams, unanimous decision over Lukasz Brzeski. I did not catch that one, actually. Davey Grant, basically at the buzzer, puts Raphael Assuncao to sleep with an inverted triangle. I will say he did put his toes in the cage to kind of set up this triangle. If you go back and watch it, he put his toes in the cage and used it as leverage to get the proper angle on this inverted triangle, but still credit to him. It was a very slick submission. He pulled it like basically out of nowhere, and he did put Assuncao asleep, which, for those who don't remember, Assuncao was like the boogeyman of the bantamweight division for a long time. People were so afraid to fight this dude. He was just an incredible fighter in his prime and before USADA. But that's neither here nor there. But a great submission by David Grant. Very creative, very slick. Cheated a little bit to get it, but hey, you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Josh Fremd got the guillotine choke over Sedriques Dumas. Very interesting grappling exchange there. It was kind of back and forth. And then Josh Fremd got on top. He went for this guillotine several times throughout the fight, wound up locking it up 3 minutes into the second round. Victor Henry and Tony Gravely, one of the fights I was looking forward to the most, one of the fights I also did not catch. Victor Henry coming away with a split decision. It seemed like Gravely got the better of the grappling exchanges, landing a couple of takedowns, but Victor Henry had more submission attempts from the stats that I read. Let me know if this one was worth going back and watching. Let me also know if you thought Victor Henry should have gotten the decision, since it was a split decision. Ariane Lipski, unanimous decision over JJ Aldrich. Bruno Silva. This was another fight where the fighter refused to tap Tyson Nam. Caught him in the rear naked choke. Got the submission before the position. Locked up that rear naked choke and then put his hooks in. For those who are not familiar, the hooks are when you wrap your legs around your opponent. Usually you want to secure that before going for the choke. They say position before submission. And that's basically when you're starting out in jiu-jitsu. They tell you that kind of thing. You want to learn how to control the position before you go for the submission. But as you advance in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you learn that it's not totally necessary. Sometimes you can lock up a submission and you know you have it, and then you can get yourself in position afterwards. And that's exactly what happened here with Bruno Silva submitting Tyson Nam, putting him to sleep. Good job by the referee, Chris Taglioni, noticing right away that Tyson Nam was asleep. And then Carlson Harris, unanimous decision over Jared Gooden. That was at a catch weight, by the way. So that was cool. Good card, I thought. Went back and I rewatched the entire main card. When I had turned it on, it was like the fourth round of the Merab and Jan fight. So I saw the end of that, and I went back and watched the whole main card last night, and then the beginning of the Merab and Jan fight. So I did watch the entire fight. I did watch the entire main card. And then this morning, I went back and watched the prelims. And I thought it was a great night of fights. Let's look at next week. You know what? Let's do this first. I'm going to tell you guys something here. I'm not going to wait till the end of this time to tell you. If you want to grab some MMA on the Rocks merchandise, you can do so through our friends at Team Reaper. Reaper1.co is the website. You can use the promo code MMA Rocks 10 to save yourself 10% on your whole order. You can get an over-the-top, under-the-influence t-shirt, tank top, or hoodie. I know hoodie season is just about done most places. Here in Florida, it's well into 80 degrees, but I'm going up to New York next week where it's still like 30 or 40 degrees. So I could use one of these MMA on the Rocks hoodies. I still don't have one, believe it or not, but you can have one. If you just click on the link in the show description after the show is over, of course. Or you can just go directly to the Team Reaper website and you can order one of those. It is appreciated. Fair warning, whatever money I make on merchandise, I do spend on alcohol. So I'll tell you that in full disclosure. All right, here we go. Next week, UFC 286 at the O2 Arena in London, England. the trilogy fight between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. Here's the thing for me. Kamaru Usman is still in the conversation for the top pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. I don't understand a lot of people's arguments for pound for pound. But here's another thing I don't understand. Kamaru Usman dominates 3.5 rounds of this fight with Leon Edwards, who's also a guy he's beaten in the past. Gets kicked in the head at the very end of the fight, and all of a sudden gets dropped out of the conversation for pound-for-pound best fighter. I do not understand that. I think it should be based on the skills that have been shown in competition. And if you ask me, Kamaru Usman is one of the most skilled fighters to ever do it. Period. He's up there for me. I know there's been a lot of talk about pound for pound. I don't personally give a shit. Makhachev and Volkanovski and who's 1 and who's 2, and then they both get pushed aside when John Jones comes back. And who cares? It's all about marketing. That's why rankings exist. It gives people something to talk about. People like me and other people who do this sort of thing for clicks and likes and drama and for people accepting them, and for none of the reasons that I do this. But if you're talking about active fighters who are the most skilled at the moment, I don't understand how Kamaru Usman is not in the conversation. Obviously, it was incredible what Leon Edwards did in the last fight. I would never deny that. It was one of the best comebacks. It was one of the biggest upsets. All of that. But if you're looking at them skill for skill, Kamaru Usman is just a better fighter. And it would take a lot to convince me otherwise. I still think Kamaru Usman is one of the best fighters on the planet Earth. Now, can Leon Edwards beat him again? Absolutely. He could knock him out in the first round, especially on his home turf. With everything he's gone through the pandemic and not being able to leave the country, and I don't know how his training has been, but not being able to fight regularly, to come out and do that against Kamaru Usman, who I hold in the highest regards as far as his mixed martial arts talent. For him to be able to finish in the way he did was one of the biggest accomplishments in MMA history. However, I do still believe that Kamaru Usman is the more skilled and more well-rounded fighter. They're 1-1. We're going to find out who the better man is on Saturday, and I'm excited for it. I genuinely cannot wait, and the UFC doesn't pay me a dime to say these things. But I'll tell you guys when I'm really excited for a fight, and I'm really excited to see this fight. I'm excited to see how the environment will change things up. Will it benefit Leon? Will it make him more stressed? Will Usman come in at 100%? Will he come in so focused and so determined that he's going to fight the smartest fight of his life and grind it out for 25 minutes? Or is he going to go in there a man on fire and try and finish Leon Edwards to get revenge for him being finished? I don't know. But I can't wait to see it. Then we got the co-main event, Justin Gaethje and Raphael Fiziev. Fiziev obviously is, on paper, the more technical striker. But Justin Gaethje is a very technical fighter as well. I think he doesn't get enough credit for it. I think he has this reputation of a brawler. but his striking is actually very, very technical. He's a good wrestler. Division I All-American in Colorado. I don't think we're going to see those skills. The only time we've even seen a glimpse of those skills is when he fought Michael Chandler, and Chandler tried to take him down, and Gaethje hit a leg pass on him, which, for those who've never wrestled, is one of the most high-level moves you could hit in live competition. It's when you're being taken down, you basically reach underneath your opponent and grab their leg and reverse the takedown in midair. Super high level, super technical. He shows he still has those wrestling chops, but we're not going to see them against Fiziev. If you told me 100% Justin Gaethje was going to fight a smart fight and mix in some takedowns, I would tell you, bet the house on Justin Gaethje. There's no way he loses this fight, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to go toe-to-toe with Fiziev, and Fiziev might just be a little bit quicker, a little bit more technical, and we'll, we've seen how that goes for Gaethje against guys like Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez. Obviously, we're not going to see him get out grappled here like he did against Khabib, but I think it's a fun fight. Gaethje has that one punch knockout power that Fiziev doesn't. So there's that. But, Fiziev will have speed and volume and technique on his side. So it's a fun fight. Gunnar Nelson and Brian Barberena. Obviously, we know the path for victory for both of these guys. Nelson's going to look to get it to the ground. Barberena has struggled a little bit with the grappling, but tough as shit, and he's got a hell of a chin, and he could probably win this fight by knockout. Jennifer Maia and Casey O'Neill, fun fight. Casey O'Neill undefeated. Jennifer Maia, has been in there with the best of the best in the flyweight division. So we're going to see if there's a changing of the guard here. And that's exciting. Here's a fight that not a lot of people are talking about. Here's my sleeper pick, folks. Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze. This is a really fun fight. All right. Vettori, who, was a legitimate contender. And now this fight is like opening the pay-per-view, I think. Dolidze is a beast. All right. We know he can do it all. We know he's a hell of a striker. We know he's got knockout power. And we know he can grapple as well. I honestly don't know which way to lean on this one. And those are the most exciting fights for me. Okay, Dolidze coming off of a knockout over Jack Hermanson, a knockout over Phil Hawes, a knockout over Kyle Dawkins, and a decision over Laureano Starpoli. It's interesting. I feel like Vittori's going to try and get this one to the ground, and if he can't, he's going to be in trouble with Dolidze on the feet. Even though Vettori is very competent on the feet, I think he's going to have a hard time. Jack Shore and Makwan Amirkhani, that's a really fun fight as well in the featherweight division. I can't wait for that one. The rest of this card, man, there's a lot of fights on this card. 15 fights. That's just too many. I think like 8 is a good number. Like 8 fights is good. And maybe put 10 just so like if a couple fall out at the last minute, then we're left with 8. But yeah, like 8 to 10 is fine. I don't need to watch 15 fights in a night. And this is one of my biggest passions. But it's just too much. I can't watch these things for like 6 hours. I don't know about you guys. But that's that. Let me know your predictions. What do you think? Do you think Usman's going to get his belt back? Do you think Gaethje's going to knock out Fiziev? Do you think Fiziev is going to out-technique Gaethje? Or do you think Fiziev is going to knock out Gaethje? Do you think Gaethje's going to come out and wrestle? Whatever you're thinking, please let me know. I love engaging with people, even if you dislike me. One of the comments on one of my short videos last week was, "Who is this guy talking?" And then he went on to dismantle like pretty much everything I said, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed reading it. You know, I'm not out here to preach to anyone. I'm here to have some back and forth and have some banter, and I'm willing to put my face to it, put my name to it. Like, this is actually my real name. I don't know if you guys are aware of that or not. But yeah, you know, if you have any feedback or criticism, I'm open to it. I do this for fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy when people interact with anything I put out there on the internet. So there's that. In any case, thanks as always for tuning in. And I believe that's all I got. So until next time, and I don't know when that will be because I'm going to be in New York next week. So the show might come a day or two late next week, but I will put out a show sometime to recap UFC 286. I hope everybody enjoys it. Hope you have a safe and fun St. Patrick's Day. And that's it. So until next time, cheers, everybody. Bye.